What are they doing? Where are they going? How are they approaching this? There. All these things, mentoring. So all that has to be encompassed. And sometimes in our society in Britain, we mix up teaching with education. It's all called education. It's all called education. So what's the problem? You're a teacher, you educate. No. Teaching is facts going in. Education is drawing the person out. Mentoring is very careful advice, which may be accurate, may be proved to be inaccurate, but very careful thought process of who that person is, where they're going, and why they're doing it.
A more 3D view of everything. So when things start to come together, you kind of observe. Does that sound?
Yes. Mentoring is a very, very important thing. It takes time, it takes consideration, it takes who is that person, what is their personality like, how are they fitting into their lifestyle, are they always, just a few examples, maybe, I know without mentioning any names at all, but people who are fixed on winning a piano competition, for instance. I find that very difficult to mentor anybody like that, because my perception is if you go for a piano competition, there's one chance of getting the first prize. Okay, one first prize. How many people are in the competition? 10, 20, 50, 100, 120, 200? A worldwide competition, 500 people? And gradually they're focused down to 50, focused down to 25, focused down to 12, focused down to the final 3, and one will get the first prize. If that is the life desire of a young musician, I have very little to say about that, except to say I wish you well. Good luck. You may win the first prize, but the chances of you winning the first prize are very, very little.
It's true.
So why would one spend one's life trying to achieve the impossible? Now, I know I've talked about achieving the impossible, flying to the moon and all the rest of it, but that's an imaginative process. That's an internal process. But to rely on other people to decide that you will get the first prize and somebody else won't is a very, for me, a very pointless thing. So I would actually not be able to mentor somebody like that.
You talk about music as if it's a story almost, a story that you have to discover in a way, which is beyond competitions and beyond numbers or degrees or anything that you can really pen down. It's something that you have to discover for yourself and understand its value for yourself. And I think that is what I've taken from you as well, from the classes that I've had with you, that it to look beyond. Yeah.
I,
Which
I was not aware. I was not aware that that was my channel at all. Now that you mention it, I shake my head and say, yes, I agree. But I was not aware, and that was not my purpose. But it is a journey, but it's not necessarily the journey of playing the notes. It's the journey of what's behind the notes.
Yeah.
Why?
I should have probably asked you this question before I asked you the teaching question, but as an individual, how do I draw this out of myself from my practice? What would you suggest? I know there is no specific technique, but how do I be as a person to be able to draw this out of myself without a teacher necessarily in my life?
Ask the big questions. If we ask the small questions, or put it another way, if we give the answers to the questions, we're talking about ourselves. Why did Beethoven do that? I don't know. But I can still hear Nadia Boulanger saying to me, have you looked at what he did later on in his life, in his compositional life? Do you know what he did beforehand? Do you know the journey he was on in composing the music? We'll never know the personal effect of his music in his head, except perhaps by looking at as much of his musical output as possible. And that just doesn't mean Beethoven. How did Beethoven react to Mozart's music? Because he came after Mozart. He wanted to study with Mozart. He played twice for Mozart. He played the Mozart D minor piano concerto in a big concert 2 years after Mozart had died. This is the young Beethoven. Had this an effect on his music composition? Yes, very much so. So much so that he wrote cadenzas for the D minor piano concerto. That was the concerto he played in his youth. And he wrote cadenzas for it. It was very formative, as these things are for anybody. So the big questions are what you need to ask. Why? Because the only answer can come from the student. The only true answer comes from the student. Why do you do what you do? Why do you play it that way? And we're all in danger in every class, in every lesson, in every masterclass of telling the student how it should go, or giving better than that, though, would be to say, look, you're doing something mechanically which is not helping you liberate your musical sense. And to liberate your musical sense, you must be liberated mechanically, even though you have to play the exact notes. Of course, you have to play the exact notes. But beyond playing the exact notes is a liberation. And we have in the Bible the analogy of going through the eye of the needle. The eye of the needle?
Yes.
Needle for needlework, yes. And the eye where the thread goes through. We have to go through that eye of the needle. We have to focus ourselves so particularly as human beings to go through the eye of the needle to come out the other side. I don't know if that answers your question at all.
No, it does. And it just struck me. I remember during our classes, I go back and think a lot about the things everybody said in conservatoire when I'm practicing. And I feel a lot of what has been told to me really settled in after I left, or I didn't understand it while I was there, but brooding over it, at some point it started to make sense, or it grew into something else. One of the things you told me was not to argue with the score. And all through my time when I was studying, I thought that it meant not to argue with the notes on the score. But I'm starting to wonder if you meant something different, or that I was actually in an argument with myself about something more than just the notes.
Good.
It took me 4 years. I'm sorry, but I think I started.
You see, You see, you're allowing yourself to be drawn out. You're taking these seeds. Many people will give one bits of knowledge, and we can clutter up our. You have greenhouses in India, polytunnels. You can clutter up your land with lots of things that you've no room for the one plant you need to plant, the rice. Yeah, we'll grow this, we'll grow that, we'll grow the next thing, we'll grow 10,000 things in our plot of land. Often in education, in teaching, we give so many facts that we don't allow the student to weed out the information that's not necessary. And when you take out the weeds, the plants grow.
I'll brood on that for another 4
So
years.
I see from what you're saying how you've developed out of that teaching process, which we have to go through, into an educational process. And now I sense coming onto a mentoring level. I can see that happening.
Personally, I think for me, it's been a little difficult to weed the weeds, as you were just saying. I think the process of trying to find the niche for myself, um, I mean, there's so much music, and there's so much about the music that I found it really overwhelming. And I know there will be other people who find it, but I couldn't voice it at that time because everything was happening at that time. It was difficult. But once you take a little bit of a distance away and you see, I found that I was completely overwhelmed throughout my 6 years when I was there, because the sheer amount I didn't know. And is there any way to tackle that? Because I still feel it, when I'm working with pieces like, I don't know, Schubert's Wonder of Fantasy. I don't know if I can do it justice, honestly.
I don't know that anybody can do any piece of music justice. I don't know that anybody can do anything justice. Did Schubert do justice with his Wonder of Fantasy? Did Beethoven do himself justice with anything? I don't think that's the answer. It's not a question, and there is no answer to it. The big question is not, can I do this piece justice? But how do I do as much justice to this piece as I can manage, knowing that it demands a great deal? A work of art is a work of art. It's a miracle. It's a magic. It's a wow. That's why people go to see the Mona Lisa in Paris. That's why people go to see the Taj Mahal. That's why we stand in front of a work of art and say, nothing. It's pretty. It's nice, clever. That's nothing to do with it. The work of art is the miracle. And when you stand in front of a miracle, what are you going to say? To play the notes of the Wonder of Fantasy is level one. Level one. First lesson, level one. Forget your first lessons in piano playing. When you look at a work of art like we have in the Western classical music, many, many, many thousands of works of art, of miracles. When we sit in front of that miracle, our first necessity is to play the notes. What does it mean? I don't know. But you bring to all your feelings, all your artistic philosophies. You bring your soul to it. And it doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your belief system is, as long as you have a belief system. As long as you have a system which asks inside you, why, how, what? And as long as you don't have answers, you've got a good belief system, I think. Or you've got temporary answers. It's because of this. Oh, it's because of that. And we go deeper and we go deeper and we go deeper and we go deeper. And to the point where you forget yourself. You lose yourself. The self is not that important. That it carries you to the point of doing it, studying it, terribly important, of course. But that doesn't carry you all the way. And I see so many people, and you know who are, we've been through these little conversations before, and I can't remember names and I don't know who I'm talking about, but we see people on YouTube, on performances, on videos, and we think there's a lot of the artist there, the lot of the person who's playing, very much, that's their personality. But their personality has not been subsumed into the personality of the composer. And if you want to go further, the composer was expressing something very, very, very deep in his or her personal life, a belief system.
Yes.
And maybe we leave out the system and we just say belief. Why are we here?
It's a big question.
We can say why we're here. We can analyze the mechanics of being here on the earth, but that doesn't tell us why we're here. And it doesn't tell us where we're going.
Another very important question I prepared to ask you, and I think it's a good time now. When you prepare a piece, when a young person prepares a piece, what would you suggest is the path that they take? Because obviously, like you said, you need to get the notes in first, and you have to keep your emotions out of the picture while you're getting the physical structure together. Okay, is there any pattern that of course everybody has their own way of doing things, but something that you would do or you would suggest?
First of all, I would suggest don't keep the emotion out. You said learn the notes and don't keep the emotion out. I'm not quite sure I agree with that, but certainly emphasize learn the notes. Because if you take too long to learn the notes, learning the notes becomes the end goal. The end goal isn't learning the notes. The end goal isn't performing the notes. The end goal is to express that composer, not you. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I think with young students, we can say, play with conviction. Play as if you meant it. Play. It doesn't matter that you might play wrong notes, or just play as if you meant it. But make sure your distinction isn't the way you play with conviction has to be the end goal. It's part of the end goal, but it's not the ultimate end goal to play with. Because I can see people in performance playing with great conviction, and all they're doing is playing themselves. And sometimes that is reckoned, often that's reckoned in the professional world as being good enough.
Yeah.
But for me, that's not good enough. That's something to the side. That's you playing you. How about you playing Schubert? How about, and I don't know how to get to that, because it's a deep, 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 deep thought pattern of using yourself as the artist, but denying yourself as the artist as well. That's a very difficult path to describe. And it is a path, it is a journey. It is a journey that every notable teacher has been on.